know. There we go. What's up, horror fans? Pete here from the Lasser Cast with my good friend Dr. Zayas God. Hopefully, I'm not having a stroke right now. Danny Torkel, and I'm starting off with some pep and some energy, but there's been a lot of death recently. Um, Today, we decided because Danny and I, besides being big horror fans, we are also big metalheads.
Wait,
And
Pete, who died today? I can't hear you.
oh, oh God, poor Ozzy's getting trumped by Hulk Hogan. So since Hulk Hogan died, I guess we're going to do a double feature today. We're going to cover what, Suburban Commando as well.
Sure. Let's go.
Hulk Hogan just died, or we just found out about it a couple of hours ago. But Ozzy Osbourne died like a week ago, and so we decided to
Like 2 days
cover.
ago. It was 2 days.
I don't know. I don't know what time it is. Everyone,
Time is
people
just
are
a
dying left and right.
construct.
Yes, yes. But Ozzy died recently. He had that farewell concert. We decided we were going to cover some kind of metal horror movie. So Danny decided to pick Strangeland. And I guess my first question for today is, Danny, why did you pick Strangeland?
Uh, my first thought when when I came up with the idea of like let's cover heavy metal horror movies was obviously to go to Trick or Treat, the movie from 1986, where Ozzy Osbourne actually has a small role, along with I believe Gene Simmons. My next thought was to cover Little Nicky, in which he pops out at the end to do a gag where he bites the head off of a animated bat. And then I thought of like there's like the rock and roll horror movies of the mid 80s, like the Trick or Treat style, Slaughterhouse Rock, Black Roses, movies like that. And Strangeland was a movie that I remember. I had just started working at the movie theater, and this was out. And I remember everybody, like all the critics, like hating on this movie. But I also remember this was like the beginning of an era where in many cases soundtracks were better than the movies they were a part of. This movie came out the same year, 1998, as Bride of Chucky, which has
Mhm.
one of the greatest soundtracks of all time. Uh, a year or two later, Scream 3 came out, which is widely considered to be the least of the Scream franchise, but has maybe the best soundtrack of the franchise. And that was just like a thing for horror, was kick-ass soundtracks. And the thing, and when I looked it up Strangeland and I found that it was streaming free on Tubi,
Yes.
I looked up the soundtrack and I went, holy shit, I've seen at least five of these bands
Right.
at Ozfest. I went to three different Ozfests
Yes.
in the tri-state area back in the
Hmm.
late 90s to early 2000s, and
Okay.
I saw System of a Down play back when they were throwing demo cassettes out to the crowd. They're on the
Hmm.
soundtrack for Strangeland. Which is really before System of a Down even became like a big deal. Like their first big album came out like 99, 2000
Yeah.
ish. Head PE, I think, was the opening act at Ozfest 99 on
Yeah.
like the second stage. Coal Chamber, I saw at one of the Ozfest. Marilyn Manson was at, I believe, either '02 or '03. My brain is telling me '03. Pantera is on the soundtrack. They played Ozfest 2000, and I know that because I had tickets to that show and I couldn't go, and it drove me crazy because uh I never got to see
Dimebag.
Pantera with Dimebag. I only
Right.
saw them later on when they had kind of reformed. I'm actually seeing them again next week in New Jersey. So
Yeah.
I thought a soundtrack full of bands that I've seen at Ozfest. That was my logic of, hey, here's a heavy metal horror movie that not a lot of people talk about, that we should talk about for 30 to 40 minutes, and I could listen to you Tell me how terrible you think it was.
Okay, a disclaimer. I actually don't think it's terrible. I think that there's a point in the movie where if they had stopped it, I think it actually would have been a really great movie. But then it keeps going for like another half hour to 40 minutes. So I just kind of want to go off of what you were saying about the soundtrack. And I have gone to Ozfest 3 times as well. Here's a weird coincidence. Out of the 3 times I went, I've never seen Ozzy perform. So I went once, and I think he was sick, and Judas Priest was the opening act, and so they had Rob Halford sing all the Ozzy, the Ozzy part, right? Then I think Ozzy was sick, or there was some kind of issue, and Black Sabbath couldn't play, and so Korn did like a double set, right? So I've never seen Ozzy play or Black Sabbath ever, which is a loss for me because when I think of Ozzy Osbourne, I've been listening to his music lately, which a lot of people have as well, and I just I feel like he almost like embodies metal. There's so many different subgenres of metal, so many different types of metal bands, but if you're gonna think of metal as a person, I think Ozzy Osbourne might be that person, and his voice is so distinct.
Oh, yeah.
And then as he goes further into his career, I actually prefer the solo Ozzy stuff over the Black Sabbath stuff. And I just think about him making some of these songs, and I'm like, holy shit! Like, what a fucking ear! Like that he would know like how to put together songs like "No More Tears" and "Mama, I'm Coming Home" and "Bark at the Moon" and just all these fucking songs that are amazing, and the talent that he had working with him. You
Yeah.
know, so I mean, we knew that his time was coming. I remember like seeing like his daughter posted a thing saying that like that final concert was his funeral. So it's not really a surprise that he died then.
Yeah.
But to bring it back to this movie, D. Snyder wrote it, and I don't think it's horrible. I think that there's something to this movie. There's just a problem with like the editing and maybe the subject matter, but not the fucking self mutilation and the sadomasochism. That's not the problem. It's the fact that like it's fucking based on like AOL Instant Messenger.
So I'm glad you mentioned that because I actually rewatching this,
Yeah.
I feel like this was one of the first movies that
Right.
I guess what would you even call it? Techno horror? Like the idea of like this is one of the first movies of like the computer age, the internet age, to actually show instant messaging, chat rooms, and I actually weirdly thought that was as accurate a representation of late 90s computer use,
Yeah.
especially by teenagers, because we were what 16 in 1998. I remember, I think that's where I still use Dr. Zayas as my
Handle.
Twitter handle, Blue Sky handle, um, and that goes back to my screen name on AOL, which was Dr. Zayas 510 at AOL.com. That was my first email. That was my screen name on AOL, and it has
Yeah.
followed me my entire life. And like my friends from high school still know me as Dr. Zayas. It's all borrowed, by the way, from more from The Simpsons than it is from the actual Planet of the Apes movies.
Right.
Uh, but like I rewatching the opening of this movie, where
Yeah.
Linda Cardellini
Yeah.
is on a chat room, and I'm like, yeah, I did that. Like when I was like 17, 18, I would go
Yes.
into chat rooms, and like I used to go into like Brooklyn teen chat rooms and like try to like this was before social media existed. This was before
Right.
MySpace existed, which I was never on. So like I was a 17, 18 years old. I had like my friend group, but I wasn't like a cool kid, and I was like, how do I meet girls in my neighborhood? Let me go, and like we would go to there was a place called Funtime USA where they would do like the Friday night dances. So you'd
Right.
go there. And then when I finally got a computer, because my parents weren't technologically literate,
Right.
so when I finally got on the internet and I started playing around, I was like, oh, let me go into these chat rooms. By the way, I think it's weird also that the last movie we covered and we did a podcast review of was Superman 3, which had no understanding of computers whatsoever. They were magic boxes that could do everything, including change the weather.
Right.
And I think Strangeland does a fairly decent job of
Yeah.
showing in 1998 the dangers of the internet. Like part
Yeah.
of like I feel like we have young kids now, we have teenagers now, Pepper and Charlotte, and you know, they probably I know Charlotte has an Instagram, and we are very careful. Like we said we have to be the first two people you follow so that we could see everything you post. And sometimes I'll look at the comments on the things that she posts. Like she'll post a picture of her cat, and you know, it's all innocent stuff from her friends, but like I check. And
Yeah.
like you see the parents in this movie, they don't have a fucking clue what's going on. And that was a lot of parents in 1998. You know, there's a
Yes.
reason why our generation is always on call.
Oh, come on. We lost Danny. And he said always on call. I bet he got a freaking call, and that's why he just disappeared. All right. I'm going to keep this review going because I think he's going to come back into the video. But what I was going to ask Danny was, did anyone leave a comment about snowboarding? And if you've seen this movie, then you know there's this sequence where there's a lot of talk about snowboarding in a chat room. But let me talk about my experience watching um, Strangeland for the very first time. I hadn't seen it when it came out. I watched it under the influence, and it was a little jarring. I kind of knew what to expect. I knew there was like this cyber thriller. He was wondering before, like, what would you call this movie? What genre would you call it? And I remember like when The Net came out with Sandra Bullock, they called that like a cyber thriller, right? So this movie I'd consider a cyber thriller. I knew that was going to happen, but it was very jarring being under the influence and seeing Linda Cardellini instant messaging with some people in a chat room. It just brought me back to when I was in high school and going into chat rooms with AOL Instant Messenger. And they show a lot of that stuff in the video. They show or the movie. Oh, here he comes. He's coming back. All right, boom. All right. Oh shit! I think I just muted him. That's good. All right. Are you there? Okay. Well, I think I might have muted you though. Hold on. On mute. Talk for a second. Okay, you're muted. Now
Hey,
talk.
listen,
Danny,
I know I talk a lot, but you don't have to like kick me out and mute me.
the best part was like you said something like on call, and then you like literally just cut out. Did someone call you?
No, it's really funny. I kept talking because and then it took me a minute to realize that you had froze. So I went off, and
Oh.
so you were probably talking the whole time until I realized, oh, he's not bored with what I'm saying. He just froze. Um, I,
So-
I'll sum up my statement really fast. I'll just say what I like about Strangeland in relation to the internet is that it shows an what I view to be an accurate portrayal of the internet as it was in the late 90s, and it also shows that even back then the internet could be a scary thing.
Yes, absolutely. And it's weird though because the internet is a very big part of this movie, but I think even more than that is this sort of like sadomasochism, this like doing stuff to yourself, doing stuff to others. They talk about when you do a little research on this movie, they talk about the modern primitive subculture, and that's the idea of like modifying your body the way that like ancient cultures or even modern day cultures, but they live in like sort of like villages and stuff like that. They might modify their body. We've seen it with like the giant earrings, or like making their mouths stretch out, things like that. And D. Snyder, his character is just like right in the center. Like that's his personality, that's his existence. D. Snyder, I think, not for nothing, I think he actually does a good job acting in this movie. Like, I'm sold on this Captain Howdy character.
So, have you ever watched the D. Snyder's congressional appearance back in like the early '80s when he was fighting back against the PMRC for trying to put the labels on the music?
I've not seen that, no.
Okay, so I teach a constitutional law class, and I actually show that every year. And so D. Snyder's voice is so ingrained in my head, not even from Twisted Sister, but, and it's weird because he actually goes into the lyrics of some of the Twisted Sister songs that the PMRC, the Parent Music Research Council, that they found objectionable and that they claim are sadomasochistic. And his argument is always, no, this is a lyric about surgery. This is a lyric about he's quoting from one of the songs from Twisted Sister called "Under the Blade," which was argued against. And I always show my students that because we use that for like First Amendment and should the music industry, you know, uh, label the music, and is that a form of censorship? Is that a First Amendment violation? And I actually got a chance to meet D. Snyder at a horror convention, and
Oh, shit, okay.
of all the photos that he had on his table, most of them, of course, were either Twisted Sister pictures or from Strangeland. I picked the picture of him sitting at Congress. And when he asked me, he goes, "Oh, this is the picture?" And I told him, I was like, "Listen, I teach history. I show my students that video every year." And he was like, "No shit." And and I'll never forget this, one of the coolest moments of my life. He like told them, he's like, "Look, don't charge this guy. He's a teacher. He's a good dude." And he like signed it like to Mr. T, and he wrote this like really nice message on it. I bring that into my classroom and I show my students all the time. Uh, but his voice is so ingrained in my head from listening to 30-minute congressional hearing testimony that he gives,
Yeah,
that when he is just rattling off this like really creepy dialogue in this movie, I kind of got
yeah.
lost in it, you know? And
Hmm.
it is my only criticism of him as an actor was it was hard for me to separate D. Snyder from Captain Howdy because I'm so used to like his voice is just D. Snyder's voice. Like he doesn't
Yeah,
alter his voice at all as the character of Captain Howdy. He's basically playing D. Snyder, but with sadomasochistic tendencies, and who's like a psychopath who tortures these people. And
right.
so I enjoy his performance, but I also just kind of get lost in his voice pattern because I'm so used to listening to it.
Yes, yes. As I get lost in your voice pattern, Danny. It's the same to
Yes.
you. What I was going to say is that I actually have not heard that many Twisted Sister songs. I think I've just heard "We're Not Going to Take It," and then there's that song that they play in Pee Wee's Big Adventure. You know that Dimmu Borgir did like a cover of it, where it's like "You're gonna burn in hell." You know that song. So
I,
anyway, when I did some research, though, I saw that there's a Twisted Sister song called what do you call it? Horror Terria, like horror dash Terria, and it's on the Stay Hungry album from 1984. And Captain Howdy's literally in the song. Like they talk about like "Stay away from Captain Howdy" or something like that. And there's a line in the song where he says like "There, that's better," and he says that when he sews up Linda Cardellini's lips in this movie. I mean, obviously, this is some kind of passion project. The thing that like when it first started and they started showing like instant messenger stuff, I was like, oh, this is going to be a rough watch. But then what sold me, what got me into this movie was him like quoting his philosophy, which is really from this one direct source too. It's from the father of the modern primitive movement, a guy named Fakir Musafar. Like lines of dialogue in this movie are either paraphrased from him or directly stated from him. And then besides that, I feel like D. Snyder either has read a lot of like hard boiled detective books, or he got some help from someone that would write like noir or like crime novels, because I feel like the police dialogue is actually pretty sharp and on the money.
Yeah.
I think honestly the weakest part of this movie is the part that has a horror icon in it, the Robert Englund part. I think that part's pretty silly. But otherwise, I'm into this whole movie.
I my there's a couple things in this movie that as I'm watching it, I'm basically like, this is a movie definitely of its time. This was a time where Robert Englund was, 1998. So he's basically done playing Freddy Krueger at this point, and now he's like horror icon for sale. And he would show up in bit roles in tons of movies from the late 90s into the 2000s. I'm
Right.
thinking right off the bat of like Urban Legend, where like he plays, I think, the professor in that movie. And he's like, ooh, is it the professor? And then, like, of course, he shows up dead later. And I feel like getting Robert Englund in this movie was just like maybe a score for D. Snyder, like, oh my God, I gotta get Freddy in this movie to play a character. And
Right.
I do kind of like the idea of like the the town going after the the killer who's let out of prison early, and kind of, vigilante justice. I do like that. I do think some of the scenes involving that part of the movie are some of the weakest in the movie. Uh,
Exactly.
Robert Englund, he does at least look like he was having a blast in this movie. That one scene where he's sitting in his bedroom and his legs, like, if you could show a picture of him, it'd be like, this is what what's the man spreading looks
Man
like.
spreading. Yeah.
He's like,
Yeah. Yeah. I know. Yeah. People that listen to just our show as
uh,
a podcast are really missing out today. You did your Hulk Hogan impersonation, and then you
yeah,
you man spread for us too. I mean, if we're gonna talk about that man spreading scene, let's just talk about how awkward it is and stuff. Like he literally says at one point, he's like, "I'm gonna lose my boner soon," and that makes you look at his crotch, and he doesn't have a boner. It's strangely enough, it looks like he's wrapped duct tape around his crotch. Like it's just this like silver mass around his crotch. And this is the longest I've talked about Robert Englund's crotch in my life. But no, I love that there's vigilante
so
justice
far.
against this creep. So far, yes, yes. Who knows what the future holds? But yeah, there's this vigilante justice against this creep in the suburban area. And so it's like, of course, you're going to have Freddy in this. It's perfect, right? I was worried that the movie was going to take a sharp turn and become this like supernatural thing after he was hung. But I just kind of assumed, I'm like, okay, well, they did show him looking like he was dead when they were in that club. So it's just like he'll still be
Which
alive.
I
Yeah.
think is, not only do I think that might be my favorite scene of the movie, but I think that is such a fucking cool shot of the camp. Like the cops go into this like metal, wild rock and metal club, and they walk out, and as they walk out, the camera pans like through the wall, and he's in like a secret part, and he's just hanging from two hooks, and it's such a cool visual. And like, you know everything about the character in that one scene, where
Yeah.
like they like take him down, and they're like, we thought you were dead, and he grabs him, he's like, I wasn't, like, you, like, why'd you fuck me over, like you screwed me over. And
Yeah.
it's just, that's the one thing, like, you will never forget what Captain Howdy looks like. The design of Captain Howdy, from the full face to abdomen tattoo on one side of his body, to all the piercings through the nose, and the teeth sharpened into fangs. He is such a defined villain. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what I was nervous about. I was nervous. Did you see Don't Breathe Part 2?
I haven't seen either of them.
Okay, so the first one's great. Don't see the second one. This in the
Okay.
second movie, they take a character who is an awful, horrible character, murderer, borderline rapist, awful fucking human being, and they somehow turn him into an anti-hero, like main protagonist good guy in part 2. And
Oh man.
I was nervous that they were going to try to make Captain Howdy into an almost like hero in the second last half hour of the movie. I do
Yeah.
think it's, for all of the stuff that goes on in the movie, to me the weakest part of the movie, and it's weird because I genuinely like this guy as an actor, but I thought Kevin Gage's lead character, the dad and the cop, I thought I don't think he emoted enough when his daughter gets
Correct.
kidnapped twice.
Right.
Elizabeth Pena, who I love and who I know you love the movie Jacob's Ladder. She's amazing in Jacob's Ladder. I don't think she was given nearly enough to do in this movie.
Right. Agreed.
I think she should have been given a lot more to carry, especially the few times she gets to like show her emotion about being the mother of a kidnapped daughter. It's so good.
Right.
And then I just didn't buy Kevin Gage's performance at the end when he goes in. He almost seems like he wants to be this holier than thou, like, I'm not gonna hurt you, I'm not gonna attack you, I'm not gonna stoop to your level. Look, I'm gonna take my gun, I'm not gonna use my gun, but 5 minutes later I'm gonna kill you and burn you alive and leave you for dead.
Right.
And it just
Well,
never, his
yeah.
performance didn't click with me, and I happen to really like him as an actor. I've seen him in, like, he's one of those actors who's been in a million things that you've probably
Yeah.
seen him in like bit parts of, and I usually like him, and I he just didn't do it for me in this movie. But other than that, I think that the movie does a decent enough job at, like, it gives you a compelling villain. It's gross and shows you a different type of body horror that you're not used to.
Right.
Um, I saw the movie Together last night. That's like a Cronenberg style, John Carpenter's Thing style body horror movie. This is a
Right.
very different kind of body horror. This is almost like a Terrifier, pre-Terrifier body horror of, like, we're going to show graphic torture scenes. We're pre-Saw, where we're going to show graphic, like, torture, and we're going to show the needle go into the skin and twist, and it's like you watch it and you're like, ugh, yeah, like, gross.
Yeah. I think maybe the most upsetting thing in the whole movie is when they show the catheter that's in Linda Cardellini pour into the bedpan. I'm like, oh god, that's fucking horrible. Okay, so you say pre-Saw, and I'm really glad you said pre-Saw because this feels like Saw. He's like Jigsaw, where he's like a mastermind. He has this view on the world. He feels like everyone is a hypocrite for the most part, and there's this like real reality which involves mutilating people, right? And there's people just like lined up in his dungeons twice in this movie, where they're just suffering in different creative ways, right? So it's very, I see the Saw influence there, or the influence on Saw there. I think what goes along with your detective, where he seems kind of contradictory, is that the movie itself, it's kind of hard to distinguish, like, should I really not like Captain Howdy, or is it like, is he someone that has this vision and he's like sticking to his vision? And this next part I'm going to talk about, I'm going to use a certain term versus another obvious term because I worry about saying it on YouTube, but he describes sexual assault twice in this movie. on Linda Cardellini, who's a teenager in the first time that he's with her, and then she's like 4 years older later on. But like when he is torturing people by like piercing them and like holding them up and sticking things into them, it's like, okay, I get it. He's like a supervillain. He is like Jigsaw. He has this like vision, and he wants to like give people enlightenment through pain. But then when he like kind of shows enjoyment for sexually assaulting Linda Cardellini's Genevieve, it's like, oh well, that's different. Like that's this other thing.
Yeah.
Um, and also what's interesting is that like he doesn't really directly murder people. I don't. The only person that like dies because of his actions is Linda Cardellini's friend, right? In the beginning,
Which they say is like borderline accidental because, well, accidental, because like she had a bad heart and she died of a heart attack while being tortured, which means he
right,
fucking killed her. Um,
right,
but yeah, also, and again, this is kind of what happens when you have like the lead actor who's playing the villain is also the writer, is also the producer, he's also doing music on the movie. Is I think that sometimes things kind of get lost because they make a very big deal in this movie that he's found not guilty of on because of insanity, and he's spends 4 years in a mental institution, he's medicated, and he's only released because he's reformed and medicated. So it's like, is this a movie about mental illness, or is he just evil?
right.
And because like the second he gets kidnapped by Robert Englund's gang, it's almost like they make a point to show that like his medicine gets destroyed, but it's almost like snap your fingers and he's like, oh, punch me and choke me and hang me from a tree, yeah. And it's like,
Yeah,
oh, so it's like he's instantaneously back to being Captain Howdy. And like, and I can't imagine it. So again, it kind of feels like he's trying to walk this line, D. Snyder, that is, of like mental illness on one side, pure evil, and sadomasochistic, tortures people for fun, rapes young girls, like on one side, and again, I think that that's kind of where the movie. It, I don't know. Again, rewatching it's not the kind of movie that I feel like I need to watch once a year.
right,
Like it's not like a John Carpenter movie like They Live, where if I'm bored and They Live's on, I'm gonna watch They Live. Like I
right.
don't think I don't think I had seen Strangeland in 20 years. Like
Sure.
I saw it back in the late 90s. I probably saw it one more time after that. Um and I don't know if I've watched it from beginning to end. I'll tell you, I definitely haven't watched it from beginning to end in so long that I had no idea Linda Cardellini was in it, and I had no idea Amy Smart was in it. And they both went on almost right after this to,
Yeah.
I think right after this, Linda Cardellini is Freaks and Geeks before this or after this?
Oh, I think after.
Okay, and Amy Smart, I think everybody would start knowing who she was probably around 2003, 4. That's when like Road Trip came out, and she became kind of like the it girl for a while. Um,
Right.
so the two of them are moderately known stars now, and I had no idea. Like I remembered the names of Elizabeth Pena and Kevin Gage, who play the main,
Parents.
the parents, and obviously the lead actor in the movie, other than D. Snyder. But I had no idea that probably the two most famous people since this movie came out were even in it. And so
Right.
that's how long ago it was for me. And it just feels like it's one of those movies that even watching it now, you can tell there are some problematic things in it, but I still think it's an effective horror movie that shows a different type of horror that we didn't really see. Because, like you said, he's not a serial killer. He's not a slasher. Um,
Right.
he does feel more in line with John Kramer. Uh, in fact, to the point where one of the things that I was thinking of while I was watching this was, I think an interesting twist for the second half of the movie would have been if Linda Cardellini willingly went back to him.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
If
Yeah.
if
So
she had like a Stockholm syndrome, or like
yeah.
the way that John Kramer in Saw, Jigsaw, has a legion of followers
Yep.
um, who
Right.
survived his traps.
Right.
I feel like, his whole thing is that the body modification and the torture and the sadomasochism is supposed to, like, you know, open up these, deep feelings in the individual. So it would
Right.
have been a cool twist to see that, like, one of the people he tortured ends up wanting to be a part of that world.
Right, exactly. Yeah, Danny, at the beginning of this recording, I said that if the movie ended at a certain point, I think it would have been a really good movie, but it keeps going for like 30, 40 minutes. And it's when Detective Gage finds him. There's this sequence where Captain Howdy is taunting Detective Gage, and Detective Gage is sitting in a car. There's a dog across the street from him that's barking at him, and then he's listening to the recording of Captain Howdy, and he can hear that very same dog barking. So he makes the connection to go into this house, and he finds him, and he finds his daughter who's been tortured. Now, if the movie ended right there, like where he gets captured, I think it would have been a really good movie. But there's this really odd moment where Linda Cardellini's in this cage, and she looks down at Dee Snider, and he's making these weird faces, like he's turning his head, and he's kind of like looking up at her. He's kind of goofy, like he's acting goofy, almost like the Joker. And I kind of expected her to like slash her dad's throat, and then that would have been like the end of the movie. But then it kept going, where he was arrested and reformed and stuff like that. So I totally agree. My mind went in that exact same direction of like, what if she was into him? But instead, it just does this thing where I think they want you to believe that he was truly reformed, like he wasn't just like hiding out for a while to escape incarceration, but that he actually had changed, and then like being killed in this vigilante justice style is like what brought him back. And I remember like when he falls off the tree, he wakes up and he goes, "Oh, what a rush!" Right? But here's the thing, like I was expecting Dee Snider to be like lame as shit because I just know those two songs from Twisted Sister, and I just thought, okay, this is a guy from the '80s. This is gonna be lame. But he says some really interesting things. He says how like you can think the most depraved things in your mind, but once you do something to a body, that's when you become a deviant, right? That's one line that stood out. But he talks so much about like the need for pain and like how it like wakes you up. Like it's to me, I could have listened to him talk just as a character, and that would be enough. I think where the movie kind of sags is where it's like the dramatic stuff, where it's like the father going after his daughter. And we'd be remiss, Danny, if we didn't talk about that fucking scene where um, Linda Cardellini's cousin, right, Detective Gage's niece, is the one that's like helping him in the chat room to find Dee Snider. That's fucking classic right there.
Yeah, put in you like winter sports.
Right.
But
Snowboarding.
I will say, like we are that generation. Like, I remember how like important it felt to me to have like a cool profile.
Right.
Uh, and like I'll never forget. So like just like a weird thing. Like my birthday is May 1st, 501. And I remember I was 17 when I got AOL in probably 19 or 16, 17. So it was like 98, 99 when I first got AOL. And my mom was standing over my shoulder when I made my profile. And my original screen name was Dr. Zayas 501.
Right.
And she went, "You're going to click the under 17 button, right?" And I went, "Why are you standing there? You don't even understand what I'm doing." And she like
Yes.
stood there until I pressed like under 17. And the second she walked away, I created a new profile and I went Dr. Zayas 510, which is not my birthday, May 10th. And it's just that has stuck with me for 25 to 30, almost 30 years now. And
Wow.
because it's like, I wanted to be, I genuinely thought people would see my profile with like under 17 and think I was lame as shit. So
Yeah. Distorted View 82. That was my first screen name. And, obviously it's turned into all this Anchor Pete stuff that I would use. But it's just so funny, like, them, like, typing in real time. And she's like, say this and say this. And they show it on the screen. They show, like, him go into a chat room, get the instant message. Like, they say I am in the beginning of the movie. And they're like, I am? What does that mean? And she's like, instant message. It's like, so corny. It's almost like an SNL parody, but it is topical of the time. It works for the time.
yeah,
Um, I mean, if it was like he was some kind of fucking like internet demon or something, it would be lame as shit. But the fact that it has this whole like self mutilation, crazy piercing, torture aspect to it, that's what makes it interesting. I don't know, man. I am glad I watched it. It was a little bit disturbing in the state that I watched it in,
yeah.
but I would not like we just covered Danny. We've had some real fucking golden movies in our last three reviews. We did Jaws: The Revenge, then we did Superman 3, and now we are on Strangeland. But this one, I'd say, is not in the same class as those other two movies.
No, I think it's a horror movie that is definitely of its time.
Right.
That late 90s, early 2000s kind of techno thriller horror. I think that it's a, like I said before, it's a different type of body horror, but I would definitely call it more like body horror, obviously, than a slasher. But I think that Captain Howdy is a pretty iconic character with a great look. The soundtrack's awesome. And yeah, I think it's a movie that if you haven't seen it, it's definitely worth checking out. And if you are like me and you hadn't seen it in 15 plus years, I think it's definitely worth a revisit. It's streaming free on Tubi, so like, and it, to your point, you said, it is it too long? Does it like go on a little bit too long? Yeah, but even then, I think it's still only 90 minutes, 95 minutes maybe.
Right,
So
right, right.
it's the type of movie where uh, I think it's an interesting one to revisit in 2025.
Okay. All right. Good. It's a good way of wrapping that all up, sir. I would say that, guys, if you enjoyed my input or whatever, you might want to go check out my other channel, Comic Books Transformed, where me and our good friend Brian discuss comic books that have been adapted into movies and streaming shows. Right now in the summer, it's kind of more that channel's time. We just covered
Oh yeah.
Superman, and now I'm going to go see Fantastic Four in a couple of minutes. We're going to cover that. But obviously, we still will be covering horror content on the Lastercast. Luckily, Danny just kind of goes to random screenings, finds things on Tubi and Shudder, and just throws up videos like constantly. What do you got going on our channel right now, Danny?
Well, just last night I saw a an advanced screening of Together, the new horror film produced controversially, I believe, by Allison Brie and Dave Franco. Really cool. Uh, I called it "If Cronenberg Directed Marriage Story." A couple.
Jesus.
A,
Okay.
it's about a
Yeah.
couple that is um, they're getting further and further apart in terms of their relationship when some type of force is suddenly literally bringing them together. Really good body horror effects. I have some criticisms. I gave it like a high 7, low 8. But definitely worth checking out. That goes into wide release on the 30th of July, I believe.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And that's what I've seen recently. What else did I just post a short review of? I don't even remember. My brain doesn't work.
Oh no.
I watched Presence, which
Oh
came
yeah.
out earlier this year. That is streaming on Hulu. Cool, different take on like the haunted house genre, where the camera basically just follows the unseen presence around the house while the family living there is dealing with it. Really cool little movie. I did another short, but I don't even remember what it was. Oh, it was for, oh God, that you could tell how important this movie was to me. I saw the new I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Oh
Or as I call it, why did this movie need a legacy prequel, or legacy
yeah.
sequel? Um,
Right.
I I will say, in the movie's defense, I saw it with a large group of friends, and most of them really liked it. They are fans of the original. I am not a fan of the original. I have no attachment to it. And so this just kind of felt like another really silly legacy sequel, disposable slasher movie. But the group I was with liked it. So I guess your mileage on it is going to go with how much you enjoyed the 1997 original. I didn't, so meh. I say meh
Yeah.
to this.
It's okay, Danny. I actually did not really like I Know What You Did Last Summer, the original one either. But that's why we're on a channel together, right? So I'm glad that I skipped that and I covered Superman 3 with you. I enjoyed that. And I enjoyed talking about this as well. So, guys, if you enjoyed listening to us talk, make sure that you subscribe to the Lastercast channel. And what do you call it? You could give us a like. You could tell us which part of your body you'd like Captain Howdy to pierce, and we will go pierce your septums next time. We love y'all. We'll see you